Okay, I figured out my key to success, now I'm locked in. I learned how to open doors like a locksmith. I'm uptown, I'm the one they wanna shop with. Run off with the bag, even though we don't shoplift. All that gun talk y'all want, I'm not with. It's not cool, everybody got them long clips. You gon' mess around and get one of your dogs hit. And when you do, I hope you know you're not John Wick.
Welcome back. Appreciate you locking in with us. I'm Atwood. Killer to my left here, DK. Killer to the far left. An honored guest here at the Next Element Academy all week long, and doing a seminar here on Saturday. I mean, this man has coached UFC fighters, Bellator fighters, PFL fighters, I think even some competitors at ADCC. Yes, he's a professional, I guess, combat movement coach, if you will. The guy's crazy. He's crazy flexible over here. It's Mr. Cameron Shayne. And we appreciate you jumping on with us and doing the seminar this Saturday. So let's just kind of start from the beginning real quick. Like, how did you get involved? Also, black belt in Jiu-Jitsu, multiple martial arts. What was your first love in martial arts, and how did that come about?
Well, first, I just want to celebrate you guys for a sec, because this has been a really, really nice surprise to be at this academy, because I had zero expectations when I reached out, and I knew I was coming to Myrtle Beach on a family vacation. I said I'd love to teach down there and have a place to train. And then I found you guys, and I didn't know anything about it. I started looking at DK's his rap sheet, and I was like, oh wow, great credentials, great background, cool, interesting. Reached out to him, and just the level of hospitality and kindness, for me, it's what I would expect from the Carolinas, because I'm a Carolina-born native, but it's not what I would expect anymore. So to get that was like, what that hospitality was like, fuck yeah, this is so nice to get that vibe like you would expect it used to be. Because it used to be, everybody was like that. It's the Carolinas. People moved here because of that. People were just so kind and just embraced people and had a sincere curiosity about them. And I think if you carry that into your martial arts academy the way he does, and you bring this beautiful sincerity, curiosity, it just permeates, and it makes a really neat and cool environment, which I am blessed to be in. Yeah. I started in the Carolinas with martial arts. I started as a kid in Charlotte. I started in traditional Mudokwan, Taekwondo, very traditional Korean style, old school. Back in those old school styles where you just broke shit.
Oh, what was that movie? God, Best of the Best.
No, that's exactly. Yeah.
Dude, I grew up watching that shit, man.
Yeah. And you know what's here's what's crazy. When I moved to LA, Jun Chong.
Yeah.
This guy Jun Chong had a school there. And when I got there, what I realized was that his partner there was two guys in that movie. I think it was Philip Ree and I can't the names.
Yes.
Do you remember?
I don't remember the names, but I remember the people.
One was a bad guy, had an eye patch.
Yes.
And one was the good guy. Well, they're brothers.
Okay.
In real life. And they're incredible Olympic style taekwondo fighter. And so it was their school.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I started. So I got a job there. It was so weird. I'm just such a weird.
Crazy.
I know.
I said that name,
bro. So weird. I was like, what? And I learned actually a lot. I improved my. I went from that traditional Korean style, which was break stuff, old school, real Japanese influence style, to Olympic style taekwondo, which was now the sport. An Olympic style meaning it was, at that time, it was an Olympic, not an official Olympic sport, but it was what they would start at the Olympics.
To have world teams.
They would and they would have it as an exhibition sport until it got enough time in and it would become a sport. So eventually, Olympic style taekwondo became an official sport, and that's where I got my start. I learned to kick from that sport. They're the best kickers in the world, bar none. Taekwondo guys are insane. They can't punch worth a shit because we don't do it.
So much focus heavily on the legs. You know,
That's
when
it.
I first started training, I trained with a Taekwondo black belt and his hopping back and forth. And I never knew this, but Taekwondo was created to kick people off of horses. Yes. Right? Correct.
Hey, I
I'm not-
never
I'm
heard
not
that, but I
100.
love it.
Okay.
And you know,
I'm not really
I
sure.
can believe it, but you know, I can believe that.
Okay.
You know, I'm not surprised because of the elevation, you know, the jumping and horses being in military activity, and all those traditional martial arts came from military.
Right. Exactly.
Application.
Judo, jiu-jitsu.
They were not for show,
No.
and that I miss that. I miss that about what's happening to the world of martial arts now. I miss that self-defense practicality. I'm sure you can appreciate it as an MMA fighter.
Yeah.
Because we can see jiu-jitsu, you know, fading into
Absolutely more of a watered down, I guess you can see. And I hate to say this, you know, it's like there's a lot of different schools out there, and there's also a different thought process behind a lot of the schools. Some schools think that you can learn how to do jiu-jitsu online and without actually applying it. You can just show the moves on a video, and then now you're going to get a belt because you've just showed that move to me against a person. I do my things a little bit different as far as my promotions are concerned. I have to see you doing it in a real-time scenario, right? Like, I judge not on,
execution of the technique.
that, yes.
Right.
More of, can you do that against a resistant
How do you
opponent?
adjust to the reality of the moment?
It doesn't have to be perfectly textbook, but like if you're arm barring somebody that's beating you, you know, and then boom, you whip out an arm bar and make them tap. Now, you know, it's obviously in a self-defense situation, they're not going to tap, right? You're going to end up snapping that thing in half, and then what are you going to do after that? So my train of thought has always been choke. Let's go for the choke, so we know for a fact we can finish the fight, right? If that person's unconscious, there's nothing. So that's more of a self-defense aspect, you know. But anyways, it's kind of been watered down over the years, you know. And there are, you know, like your Professor Lovato is an old school guy, but he is far from being watered down, if I should add that myself. Man,
that generation is still, those guys still came from that you know, that you got that you had to fight to prove any effectiveness with the work. And if you didn't fight, you're not really doing jiu-jitsu. So that was the last generation. Really, that's the Hajar Gracie,
man,
Shanji, Raphael. It's after that. And again, I'm not saying you don't have guys that are still willing to prove it, like a Gary Tonin. He's in him. I mean,
he's doing MMA
he's
now.
put himself in there.
And I think Cade Rotolo is.
Oh, they'll put that. I think they'll do
Rotolo
it.
brothers.
Yeah, I think they're talking about it.
Wow.
There's always going to be a guy. I mean, well, look at Gilbert Burns. He's one of my students. Yes. Look at Gilbert. Look what he did transitioning from jiu-jitsu to. So it's not that there aren't guys that want to do it, but even Gilbert. You know, Gilbert's 37, 38. He's still in that Lovato. That's that same age group. Yeah. It's that kind of like they did it because jiu-jitsu was not a money-making sport. It was a way to protect yourself and a way to survive in the world. And now, you know, as soon as you start getting kids producing kids like Cole, Abata, and again, I'm not. This is no criticism. Their jiu-jitsu is beautiful. I don't deny that. But when you produce kids that are purely for the sport and the competitive, and now that starts to make that money and all that, you're gonna have a bunch of guys that are going to get punched in the face, and it is not going to be the same.
Man, I remember I was really into leg locks when I first started. My first coach was a Japanese jiu-jitsu guy. And so I went into my first fight, you know, coming from this Japanese jiu-jitsu background, and a lot of leg locks, you know. Think of like just heel hooks, straight ankle locks, knee bars, you know, a lot of that Japanese pancration style.
Going after the legs.
Going after the
Yeah.
legs, dude.
Yeah.
And so I remember being on top of my first pro MMA fight. I'm on top of this guy. And instead of grounding and pounding him, I'm like, I grab his leg. I'm going to fall back for a straight ankle lock. And it was one of the stupidest decisions I ever made in my entire MMA career, man. Because as soon as I fell back, because the processing time, I was a brand new blue belt. I shouldn't have been fighting pro. But nowadays, right? Nowadays, but we're talking 2007 time frame.
Well, if you're a blue belt in 2007, you're basically a brown belt now.
Yeah,
it's
true. Right. It's crazy.
It's true, because everybody was blue belt.
Man.
Actually,
Everybody
a blue
was
belt
blue.
was actually a really dangerous guy at that
crazy.
time. Yeah,
it was wild. I had my blue belt for like 3.5 years too. So I grab this dude's leg and I fall straight backwards, and he comes right up on top of me in the full mount, punching me in the face. Fortunately for me, man, my escapes were on point too. Right. So like I was like, bail on the leg. And the commentators are just like, well, I don't know what Kennington's thinking there.
Interesting decision, Tom. Sure was, Bill. Not something I would do, but all right.
Oh my
all right.
God.
Kennington's I remember my first time in the ring.
Yeah, man, it was just unreal. And I ended up winning that fight.
Oh,
yeah.
Hey,
unreal,
despite
man.
yourself.
Yeah,
despite yourself, yeah.
Man. But one thing that the will to want to win, right? That's the one thing that I think, and the will to fight, and my heart and everything just wanted me to win that fight. So I think I didn't win it off of skill alone, man, because I just won it off of pure heart and determination. You know, I definitely didn't do it on a skill. But anyways, you know, speaking of me, like early on in my career, I came across you when I was a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, and I was training at with Brandon Powell. I was stationed in Sumter, South Carolina, and I would drive up to Charlotte, and I would train with Brandon any chance I got.
Did you train at South End?
South End.
Yeah, that's where I was there. For a brief period of time, I was there.
Yep. And, yeah, I remember your Budokan
you can remember it?
Logo there and everything. I remember it to, like, brick building.
Yeah, that building was a really cool brick
building. That was a cool building.
It was a very cool building.
That was the first time I had been introduced to high end.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
high end like gyms,
jiu-jitsu
and
environment.
Jiu-jitsu environment. I was like, because you walk in there, man, and you go into the locker room.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, the gym was really nice. There was a boxing ring in there.
Yeah.
And I was
that's like, right. It had a nice boxing ring.
Everything was top of the line.
That place was really, really nice. And I remember I got a chance to put my work in there because Betsy, who owned it, was a friend of mine. And so I got in there, and then we got Brandon in there to do jiu-jitsu. And that's, you know, he and I became friends. And at that time, I had been living in LA for about 15 years before that. And I had built... I went there because I was interested in doing stunt work when I was young.
I was about to ask you that. I was like, why'd you go to LA? And I was, that's exactly was what I was thinking. You were probably,
I was really interested in because I loved.
That's cool.
I was doing parkour before there was like a parkour. We were just jumping over shit and buildings and stuff. And I was like, you know, and my friend, you should be a stuntman. I was like, you know, I should. I loved action films, especially Jackie Chan and martial arts films.
Absolutely.
I was a martial artist. And I was just like, okay, this could be something I could really love because I didn't want to work at an office job. I knew that.
Who does?
I mean, you know. So I was like, okay. So I went there, and then I just found I worked on Rush Hour 1 and Rush Hour 2, because, well, when I moved there, when I lived in Charlotte, I started working with one of my best friends' dad owned the Charlotte Hornets, and because he owned the Charlotte Hornets, I became friends and connected with a guy named LaRon Ellis, and he was a professional. He was an NBA basketball player, and he played for the Hornets. He was a center for the Hornets. I started training him. He knew a guy in L.A. named Rick Calamaro. When I moved to L.A. with Chris and them, he connected me with Rick. Rick ran a club above called On the Rocks, which was above the Roxy. Roxy, very famous nightclub in L.A.
Yeah.
And On the Rocks, because it sat on top of the Roxy in the second floor, was frequented by Heidi Fleiss. Heidi Fleiss was ladies of the night for very high-end entertainers, ball players.
Heard her name in some rap songs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, celebrity ladies. And so Charlie Sheen was one of them. So Rick introduced me to Charlie. Charlie hired me to travel with him as a personal trainer and a security person because he didn't really like to have big guys. He liked to have more of a social,
fly under the radar.
Exactly. Social guy, more of a public relations kind of character. Because Charlie loves people. So he didn't want like some 6'6" dude scaring people and pushing people out of the way. He wanted a guy to be like, hey man, he's busy right now, but he'll get to you. He wanted a smart guy that could work with strangers and at the same time not come off like an asshole. And so we became very good friends. I lived with him, worked with him. He worked on a film called Money Talks with Chris Tucker. Chris and Charlie used to play baseball together. And then as I lived with Charlie and was friends with Charlie for the last time I met Chris, Chris said, hey man, I'm working on this movie called Rush Hour with this guy named Jackie Chan. Have you ever heard of him? And I said, yeah. Well, at this time,
he wasn't as big.
He wasn't. No one knew him in America at all because at that time he had never done an American film. There was nothing by Jackie in the U.S. So he was more of a niche. If you liked Kung Fu theater, you might know who Jackie Chan was. He wasn't like Bruce Lee, who had done Enter the Dragon, which was a box office American hit. Jackie Chan was just a Chinese acrobat, Kung Fu martial arts guy. So when Chris got offered, but Jackie was the biggest Asian star in the action genre in Asia.
Okay.
So in the Asian market, he's enormous.
Yeah.
But in America, he's no one.
Right.
Because he doesn't even speak English. Right. And you know how that goes. Look at the UFC. Who are your biggest stars? They're always your classic U.S. Look at how great Amanda Nunes was. Arguably the greatest female fighter ever. Right? Mm-hmm. But because she wasn't a pretty white girl, just the reality.
Yeah,
she wasn't Ronda Rousey.
Yes.
And Ronda Rousey, for all intents, was a thug. It didn't matter. She's a pretty
girl,
blonde white girl, and she what's her name wasn't, and didn't you couldn't earn that position like a Conor McGregor.
Right.
Again, what's the difference? Let's be honest. Conor's great, but he's not that great. His record isn't anything compared to Amanda Nunes. Nothing compared to Amanda Nunes. He doesn't even stand in the same category of defending your title or a John, whatever. Point being that Jackie, same thing. America's weird about that. We like Brad Pitt, but we're weird about anybody that doesn't fit that bill, that model. Yeah. So Jackie wasn't anybody. And Chris was a very funny, popular young black actor and entertainer. So it was an interesting mix to put a young black guy with a Chinese guy that barely spoke English.
Two different cultures.
100%. And no one thought this was going to do anything. they thought it'll do okay. Chris has done, Friday.
Friday, bro. I'm
Right.
a big Friday.
Right.
This dude quotes Friday. At
Well, there you go.
5 times a week.
Right. So Chris has got he's a cult following.
Yeah.
Jackie's got the Asian following. So they knew they were going to sell something, but they didn't think it was going to do much at all. This movie made so much money, they were not prepared for it.
Yeah, that movie was awesome.
They were shocked. They did not know it was going to do so well. So anyway, Chris says to me, "Hey man, Cam." He said, "Cam, you know who Jackie Chan is?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." He goes, "You think I should do this?" Because he was like, "Who is this guy? I don't know anything about." I said, "Man, I think you should, because this is going to be great for you in Asia. It may do nothing here, but in Asia, you'll gain an audience. Here, we don't know. It may do nothing." And he was like, "Okay." So he does a movie. He only got paid, I think he got paid maybe $2 million, $3 million. That's nothing.
Yeah.
For what this would be worth, given its success.
Right.
Because let's say Rush Hour 3, he made 25 million. I mean, they're substantially different. Yeah. So anyway, because, hey man, after you make $3 million in Hollywood, after you pay your agent, the manager, the whatever, that's nothing.
Taxes.
It is not anything. Because you're talking about 10, 20, 30. So that was really a very small paycheck. So big success. I worked on it. I was his fight coordinator for it, because he said, "Okay, well, let me have you teach me martial arts, because I don't know any martial arts." So I became his fight scene coordinator and his trainer for it. We did 1, we did 2. Huge success. I actually wrote the scene where he walked into the parlor and he got kicked in the face and he went, "Which one of y'all?" Exactly. I wrote that line. Exactly.
Did you?
Yeah, sure did. Yeah. Well, because the idea was that he was going to come in, and we knew he was going to get kicked. It was already in the script that he came in, and he was like, "Okay, yeah." Chris comes in, and like, what happens? So I was like, "Okay, dude, you come in, you're like, all right, da. You get kicked in the face, but it happens so fast you don't know who kicked you. This is the bit. You don't know who kicked you." So I just wrote, "Okay, which one of y'all kicked me?" Because it happened so quick. Then Chris did this. He'd come out of the blue. He got kicked and he crossed his eyes. He went, "Which one of y'all kicked me?" Man, the whole set fell out. We had to shoot it again because it was so funny. Everybody started laughing because no one knew what he was going to do. We knew the line. And it was just like, oh, that was genius. So,
that's like one of the best lines. If you ask me what line from Rush Hour do you remember, it's that one.
Yeah, it's either that one or the one about the radio. When they're in the car. I think it was the first Rush Hour.
Oh, yeah, I didn't write that. Yeah, no.
Like,
yeah.
You don't ever touch a black man's radio.
Chris. That's Chris just improving. Exactly. Man, don't you ever touch a black man's radio. Yeah.
Touch a black man's radio.
Now I wrote. Do you remember Rush Hour 2, where he goes into the Asian the parlor, the lady parlor, the girl parlor, and they go into the Chinese massage parlor, and they bring out all the women, and he goes, "Man." I read this. He come out and he goes, "Oh," all the ladies come out, and then Jackie starts talking. "Man, don't you ever break in front of a black man in a buffet line." I wrote that based off of the first time. Don't you ever take a black man's radio. So we kind of did a callback on that. Was a funny line. So we did that. That was great. And then, but there's a million stories. But anyway, that was my LA, sort of just a brief touch on LA. So when I finally moved from LA, I went to, I was done with LA. I was just exhausted by the place and blah, blah. So,
it'll spit you up. It'll chew you up and spit you out, man.
But it's good. But it's good for one thing I came away with, I said, if you can survive in this city, you can survive anywhere. And everything feels easy because of the level of pressure and the amount of money and the amount of sort of cloak and dagger deception, jockeying for position. Who are you? What are you doing? It's a very interesting.
How old were you then that time?
Early 20s.
Wow.
That's when I met Rickson. So when I was there, I remember I got there and I got my job at the Junri. Junri was the taekwondo studio. Jun Chong, Philip Ree was the best of the best. Jun Chong owned the studio with Philip Ree, their partners. So I got my job there. Then years, I was there for years, and I got my black belt in. I was a 5th degree black belt in Olympic style taekwondo. I got my 3rd degree black belt in Japanese karate. And while I was studying Japanese Yoshikai karate in the Pacific Palisades, there was a group of guys that would come into the karate studio at 8:00, and they would lay mats down on the floor, and they would do wrestle karate. And right. And I was like, what in the fuck is this? And I remember
I ain't never heard no shit like that. Wrestle karate.
Yeah, wrestle karate. And I thought, this is the dumbest thing I've ever. I'll be honest. When I saw jiu-jitsu for the first time, I thought, what in the fuck? What in the wide, wide world of sports is happening in front of my eyes? Why are these guys in gis?
Not punching or kicking.
Not punching each other in the face again. Why are they wrestling? And I was just like, so I watched, and I was like, I was so suspicious. I was like, why would you not just punch that guy in the face? Which is the right attitude if you're a martial artist.
Yeah.
It's the right attitude. Mm-hmm. But then I met this kid. This kid, I was lifting weights at the Y. I saw him. He was in the class. I said, hey, I see you at the jiu-jitsu class. I said, you teach me some of this stuff and I'll show you some stand-up. And he was like, cool, let's do it. This little blue belt beat my ass, choked me, beat me, just as you would do in that time, just tapped me 500 different ways. And this was Rickson. This was Rickson's school. I didn't know Rickson from, from whatever. He was just a dude teaching stuff. So Rickson lived in the Pacific Palisades. I lived in the Pacific Palisades. And he had his family there, and he was using Jerry Blank's karate school as a place to teach jiu-jitsu.
Kind of renting out
he had left
the area or whatever.
Yeah, he'd left his garage thing, and he just was running his little makeshift group. Then he opened his Wilshire school, which I moved to, and that's where I got my blue belt with him. And really started my true jiu-jitsu journey. I studied with him and Thiago Vela, who was one of black belts under those guys.
Probably the best fundamentals that you can learn is from Rickson, in my opinion.
Yeah, I got good. Well, guys used to try to kill us.
His guard posture, just him and his guard posture and the way he teaches rounding your back and staying strong and sitting down so nobody can knock you off balance when you're in somebody's close guard, is really beneficial. I teach it to this day, but Rickson, that's just unbelievable to start.
I was lucky, and it was just pure luck.
Unbelievable.
It was literally just luck that I worked at that school.
Yeah.
And that there they were, and that's how I got introduced. And it gave me, but here's what's funny, because this is why this story matters, is because that's where I learned movement. More importantly, that's why I have a career right now, is not the jiu-jitsu, because I don't make money teaching jiu-jitsu. I make money teaching movement. So it was that moment exposed to Rickson moving on the mat. And I was like, what is he doing? I thought what was more interesting about what he was doing than his jiu-jitsu was the way he was moving to warm up.
And his breath was.
Yeah, and I was like, what's going on with this guy? He's doing weird, trippy stuff. Then I bought his VHS video, because at the school we just had any school where you sell And so
merchandise.
So at the school, we could buy our patches and our things, but we could also buy the movie Choke, and we could also buy his fights.
Wow.
Because they had again, this is all on VHS at this time. So they had run copies of his fights in Pride, and you could buy his Pride fights.
That's cool.
Yeah, exactly. And I gave all this stuff. It's just stupid. I gave this stuff away at the time. It didn't even, because you just think his stuff is. Man. You just think stuff doesn't matter anymore. Because you're like, I can't watch it. I know. And it would be sitting on a table just as a like a
artifact.
Artifact, exactly. But at that time, I started really getting fascinated because I was already teaching yoga. I was a martial artist teaching yoga. And I was like, but he's doing something different. This is sort of yoga-ish. It's sort of, but it's like it's movement. What is it? So then I got pretty interested and I started looking out there in the world. And I started seeing that there were a couple other guys in the movement world that were doing similar, not to Rickson, but were doing things that I was starting to kind of play with. One was Alvaro Gymnastics Natural.
Romero.
Alvaro Romero. And then I figured out, okay, he studied under Orlando Connie, who Rickson learned movement from. And he basically just appropriated, I'm going to use that word very loosely.
Yes.
He appropriated Orlando's work and renamed it. Because but here's the difference. Romano turned his work into fitness. Orlando was never into fitness. Orlando's like a super spiritual yogi. Imagine 82-year-old guy right now learning kung fu forms, animal movement form, like all from that old school mentality. So like mystic style. He was learning it and just taking the mysticism away and making it fitnessy. So that's what he did with it. And then there was Scott Sonnen, who was doing that sort of this other stuff he was taking from Sistema, that Russian. He was doing interesting things with movement in his own way. So it's like, okay, there's a couple guys out here doing cool stuff that I thought was interesting, and I was doing what I was doing. And so everybody was teaching. Alvaro was in Brazil. Scott was in the U.S. I was in the U.S. And so we all just kind of started teaching these ideas. And they just started, and there was no real place for it because there's no category on
how you should move your body.
Correct, exactly. And there's no vertical sport for it. Like there's no baseball. That's a vertical clear sport. Football, basketball, movement? Movement? What's movement? What's mobility? I mean, this is mobility. That's mobility. It's just impossible to sort of funnel it into what makes things successful in America, which is, can you commercialize it and monetize it? Whoa, you can't make shoes for that. Oh, you can't make jerseys for that. How's Adidas going to sell anything off movement? Well, you can't, which is why it's never become what it could be, and it never will. It's not a team sport. And team sports that's the dominant, money-making, what I call a vertical, meaning you can, it's very clear and stack this thing. You can just layer it with revenue. And you can't do that with this kind of thing. So it's remained sort of avant-garde, niche, the same reason it is for you, where it's like people are like, what are you doing?
Yeah. It's like, why are you?
Yeah, why are you crawling?
Why are you so interested in my feet being positioned a certain way?
Exactly. Why are you breathing? Why are you why are you? And that's because, again, it doesn't have that mainstream support. Mm-hmm.
It's not easy.
And that adaptation, right? It's not easy. It requires you to be thoughtful careful,
dedicated.
It's another language to learn. People don't want to learn it. So it's been difficult. But that's why I'm here where I'm at right now, is because in order for me to be where I've arrived, I had to weather all of that skepticism and that sort of that rejection, because yogis were like, that's not yoga.
Yep.
Martial artists are like, that's not martial arts. Nobody wanted to claim it because it wasn't pure from any.
It was like karate wrestling.
That's it. It's just exactly. And everybody's like, what the fuck is that? But and in all fairness, why did the only reason that finally was embraced was the UFC? Before that, everybody was like, yeah, whatever, dude, sure. I'll just do Muay Thai. I'll go do boxing. I'm not gonna.
And unfortunately, it's like the movement space never really kind of took off either until Conor McGregor started showing that he's doing something outside of the norm.
And
right, he's doing something different, and then he goes in there in the ring and he's moving so smooth, and shot, bam, you're knocked out. And
then people are watching him. This is what made him. This is what made it hit. Was the guy training him? When Conor, people saw Conor's sort of the UFC did the behind the scenes, and they were like, oh, whoa, he's doing this secret shit, which Rickson had already been doing.
Yep.
But Rickson wasn't a UFC legend, even though Rickson was way bigger than Conor.
Yeah, and I think it was, social media has helped.
Oh, my God.
A ton.
If there was no Instagram, this wouldn't even be we wouldn't even be talking about this right now. It wouldn't even be a conversation.
Yeah.
Because without that vehicle, there's no way.
Yeah,
no way.
It's just like because that's the way you find out about it more. I was telling Cameron a while back, I was like, man, I have one of your DVDs from back in the day. And, that's now it's like you talk to a kid that's 15 years old, they don't know what a DVD is.
DVD.
You ain't got an app for that?
No.
But it's like,
this is the thing. What I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to interrupt the culture of jiu-jitsu by saying this. If we don't start focusing on longevity and stop this, what we've been doing is we've been eating up. Jiu-jitsu is like a meat grinder. It uses up young athletes, and it grinds them to basically to dust, and then they quit. And that's why remember the other night in class? Yeah. I said, how many guys in here are going to do jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, and there were only 2 over 50.
Exactly. We did
you included.
Just so you guys who are listening, we asked. There was, 35 guys in class?
Yeah, somewhere around in there.
35 guys. I said, guys, how many of you guys are going to do jiu-jitsu forever? 99% of the room raised his hand. One guy didn't. You about chewed his head off. Yeah.
It was Ryan King.
Yeah. You're like, what the fuck? What are you talking?
I said, dude, get your fucking hand up, bro. What are you talking about?
He's like, not me, coach. I'm only going to do it for a year. Well, you're like, what?
I'm going to quit next year.
Yeah, you're like, get the fuck out of here. So everybody raises their hand. So 30 guys, let's say, raise their hand. And I go, okay, guys, 30 guys say I'm going to do jiu-jitsu my whole life. I go, okay, how many guys in here are over 50? So I raise my hand and one other guy. And I go, guys, how the fuck is that possible? You're all lying or you're all delusional. And so let's tap into reality here. You're going to do jiu-jitsu till it hurts too much. And that's the end of that. Yeah. And that's how it goes. So I said, the reason there's no one in here that's even 60 is because it's so brutal on your body. And it doesn't have to be, you can recover, you can survive, you can keep coming back, but not with the wrong habits, the wrong eating, right? The wrong nutrition, the wrong behavior, lifestyle.
Yeah. And when I felt my best is when I do mobility work, right? Is it hard? Yeah, it's hard, especially after you've been training.
Yeah, you have to make time.
You have to make time.
Right.
Who has that, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like you. But when I do most of my mobility work is at night, before I go to bed. Before I go to bed, when I'm at almost my tightest, right? You've cooled down, you're relaxing, and my hips, my knees, I can start feeling it. And so, I'll do basic little things: hip mobility, knee mobility stuff, ankle mobility, shoulder. Just basic stuff. For about 30 minutes. Could you do it for an hour? I know. What's the guy that beats himself up? The runner guy. David Goggins, right? I think he does like 2 hours of stretching a night or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of I'm a fan of his attitude. I'm not a fan of his logic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I like his attitude.
His attitude is good. His logic is kind of out there.
I mean,
It's
it's just like, recovery, as you said, is essential for everything that exists on the planet. There's nothing that doesn't require recovery.
And, a lot of yogis, they speak, you're as old as your back.
Yeah.
Once-
Chinese would say that, your spine, yeah.
You're as old as your back is. And, you have to take care of your spine. Like, I have degenerative disc disease. I'm 90% disabled through the VA, through the military. I have degenerative disc disease. Both my lower two discs are almost gone. I have sciatica, hip pain, torn, shoulder, but it's doing the extra things that helps me keep on training, right? Like I can train 16 rounds a day. I can do push-ups even with the torn shoulder because I know the way to position my body in order to do push-ups too, the right way, and being locked in throughout my whole core and stability. It's just sometimes I think, us jiu-jitsu fighters, we get into this state of like kill, right? Like if it ain't hard, then, or if we're not doing jiu-jitsu, then it's not worth it, right? If we're not practicing a move, it's not really worth it. But it's like, if you look at the best guys in the world, and let's take Andre Galvao, right? When I first saw Andre Galvao come onto the scene when he was, just coming up, I remember seeing a highlight video of him, and he was doing this movement, and he was crawling around on the ground like an alligator. I mean, like he was floating on the ground, right? The way he moved and the way he did his front rolls and the backwards rolls. And I was like, it's effortless. It looks effortless the way he's moving. When I would just be, move the way I move. And so you take your movement even to the next level by combining everything in together and actually explaining what's going on and taking place. And that's the what's difference now. You're explaining. You came into our class on Monday night, Monday night, and taught an amazing intro to what we're going to do on Saturday. And you explained why we're doing the movement. So when I do this back kind of tuck, my foot goes in there. It's so whenever somebody is trying to knock you down and you re-angle, I'm like, duh, right?
Yeah, it's so obvious. Yeah,
yeah, it's so obvious.
Well, it's already what we do.
It's already what we do.
So it's not like you're not like you're just.
It's not
more
new
like,
movements.
Oh. Yeah, your brain's just like, oh, well, yeah, which is good. Instead of it being like, duh, instead of it being more complex, it's more like, yeah, of course I do that. What I said to one of the guys today, I said, look, I've basically designed a complementary language to jiu-jitsu that removes or what is the right term? When you lift something out of something,
You unveil something.
It's sort of a, if you take an element out of a core thing. So I've I've removed an element from the
Core of jiu-jitsu.
from the core composition and said, let's look at this element.
Absolutely. Yes.
Extract. Thank you. It was such a I couldn't think of it either. So you think about this.
We trained today.
Yes.
We tried to kill each other earlier, so I don't know what you're talking about.
So if you think about this, think about taking a recipe like something simple, like a brownie or whatever, and you're extracting some core element like the oil. Is it butter? Is it coconut oil? Is it olive oil? What is the oil? Because in something like that, it matters.
Absolutely.
It's a big deal about in regard to the flavor, the texture, the thing.
Yeah.
Like it's not something you can do without. What's going to make it moist? Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you're going to have cake. Okay? So in jiu-jitsu, movement is like that. It's that essential. There's no jiu-jitsu without it, you could argue. So my job as sort of a movement scientist was to go in and deconstruct, which is what I'm good at. I'm good at taking a pattern and extracting from that pattern sub-patterns or layers. And like it's kind of like an engineer's job. And go, okay, what makes this work? These are the elements that make it work. Now let's focus on this particular element, which is because look, you could also take another element like flexibility. Flexibility is an element that exists inside jiu-jitsu. And with limited flexibility, your jiu-jitsu won't be as good. So you could argue that's another ingredient in the right. But is it as important as movement? It's not. Because movement's everything. That's why you can still be broken and do some form of jiu-jitsu. You can be broken, you can be limited in flexibility and still pull off some old man jiu-jitsu, we like to call it, right? So the point being that movement is a key element. And when you extract that and you put it under a microscope and you go, okay, now this matters. And what do we need to understand about this? And that's what my job was, so that I can take all the ways we move inside of the art form and turn that into another language in and of itself. So now you have a complementary language. So you could teach these two things side by side. Because like today, when we were working with the belts, we were working with flexibility training. Excellent. You need it. So we were focused on one element of the recipe, an essential element. When we were doing a push-up, there's another element, strength. But again, nothing is quite as essential as movement, because mobility is how you go from here to there. And that's the very definition of mobility, is freedom to move. That's a literal, you look it up right now in the dictionary, it says the freedom to move is what mobility is. And that's how we think of it. So every animal that needs to, hey, are you mobile, man? Can you go? Can you get there? What's your mobility? Because it's a broad word used in more than jiu-jitsu. So if you think about that and you think, how have we gotten so far away from this idea where the Russians believe in it, which is why look at their wrestling. Yeah. Look at their wrestling, because they're mobile. They practice gymnastics, flexibility training, strength. That's why, and so do the U.S. high-level guys too. What's weird about us is once you leave that Olympic level and you get to the collegiate, high school, it starts reducing down to the most basic kind of like, almost it loses all of that high level thinking, and it gets reduced to just kind of mediocre average doing. Where in the Russians, that's built from the bottom up. Yeah. Exactly. Right. Your kids learn that.
Yeah.
See, that makes no sense. that, oh, our Olympians do it, but our kids don't. Their kids do it, and they're Olympians. And so you wonder why, but there's no wonder why they dominate in sort of overall. Yeah, we might have a Jordan Burroughs, but that's one guy.
Right.
How many Olympic medals have they won across the board? And so these are the real questions for us. If we want to interrupt the behavior of jiu-jitsu culture, we have to overall accept that maybe we're not doing it right. That's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of guys, but it's a very simple question asked to every single jiu-jitsu teacher that exists out there is like, hey man, who taught you movement as a subject, as a craft? 99.9% of them will tell you no one. So it's not that they're negligent. It's really that it's not even in the vernacular. They don't even know that they don't know it. It's a I didn't know that. Versus, well, did somebody teach you to run around the room and do jumping jacks? Well, sure, yes. Okay, well then you got taught something. I'm trying to interrupt that and say, guys, what we were doing was just warming up. There's nothing wrong with that. Warming up's not bad, but we're not talking about warming up. We're talking about real preparation and skill set development for wrestling another grown human. like when you wrap your head around,
it's like,
when you wrap your head around what we really do, you know, if you look at a person, an alien comes down and go, what is this? And you go, well, two grown human beings use their maximum strength to try to twist and squeeze each other to the point of death. And they would be like, ooh, you probably want to be in good shape for that, right? Yeah. You want to have all your, you know, oh, no, we do it right out of we just roll out of the truck and put on our belt and, you know, and do some jumping jacks and get right at it. That's it. Yeah. And so the logic behind it is so insane. So I'm going to come back to my point. We grind up. Remember I said meat grinder? Yeah. We grind up all these young bodies. And by the time everybody gets 40, they don't do jiu-jitsu anymore, but they were great practice dummies. So basically what you just practicing on each other and breaking each other's bodies. And everybody just falls off at some point because, again, the pyramid of age gets so small, that's why it's a pyramid, that all the players have pretty much fallen away and quit because knee surgery, this, back, degenerate, the discs, the this, the that. And it no longer feels good. So what you end up with is the foundational lies of jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu's for everybody. No, it's not. Jiu-jitsu is easy. No, it's not. Jiu-jitsu, is great for fitness. No, it's not. Like jiu-jitsu itself, no, it's not. It's not great for fitness. Jiu-jitsu is great for self-defense.
Right.
So all the things we use to sell tickets to the show to get people in the door to pay our bills, I know why we all say it, but most of it isn't true. It could be that way. Like here's an example. If people come here and they learn proper movement and they learn proper conditioning and they learn proper jiu-jitsu, then it's true. If they don't, it's not true. And so do we want these guys to really be able to roll forever? And by the way, as a studio owner, how does it make sense to lose all your clients by 45? Yeah. How does that make sense? You spend all this time building, and then your churn rate, it's a bad churn rate, man. They're coming, they're going. They're coming, they're going. No, you want them to come and stay. Well, they can't because it's not focused on longevity. Yeah.
That's where I'm trying to change things, right?
I can see that, yeah.
That's why I'm different than a lot of other
I can see that
around here.
I mean, no, I've never even seen anybody cool down and stretch. Yeah. You're the first person I've ever seen actually do that.
Yeah.
Which is frightening. Can you imagine how many studios I've been to? You know?
It's just unreal, and so I'm blessed to have you here, man. And, you know, I'm excited about the future. I'm excited to learn from you this Saturday. And so if you guys, you know, are around Myrtle Beach on Saturday, we're going to have the great and powerful Cameron Shayne.
Gosh. Yeah, the great, no, yeah, I was gonna say,
but it's,
Thank you.
man, it's just, yeah, we got to change the mentality behind jiu-jitsu, right? Like
Yes,
it is a combat sport,
Yeah.
but since the beginning of time, soldiers had to take care of themselves, right? So if we go back to Russian bathhouse, cold plunges, all these different things, these warriors did these things to take care of their body so they could better prepare for combat. They practiced swordsmanship. They practiced yoga since the beginning of time, and the mobility aspect behind combat sports is based upon movement, right? And how well you can move your body better than your adversary. And so I'm excited to learn more and put it into our academy. And I've talked about he has a university, Budokan University, and he also does retreats in Montana at your place, right?
Our focal point is education. So if our objective is to get as many practitioners to come and invest in basically an immersive experience, an educational experience into movement as it applies to their jiu-jitsu. So I know it can be tough, you know, man, I've got only so much money. What am I going to do? I go, guys, if you could invest into something that's going to lengthen out your health and wellness, this is a good investment. You're going to go, you're going to study something you love, which is jiu-jitsu. You're going to study how to move within it. And it's, week long in Montana where we are. And it's an amazing, investment. And
Montana's beautiful.
Yeah. And you, Coach, are one of, I said to you earlier, my dream is to have just dozens of great black belts like yourself teaching the work because you love it and you get it and you're committed to that. And, you want to, as I said earlier, you want to be your word. When you look at people and you go, hey man, jiu-jitsu is for everybody. Hey man, you can start anytime. Hey man, you can do this forever. It's amazing. You want to be your word. And to be your word, is we all want to be our word with this, but we do have to have then a more balanced approach to the art of jiu-jitsu, which we have to have as much recovery and restoration as we do damage and grind and effort. It's got to be a balance.
It's got to be a balance. And that's where, a lot of the mythology, I guess, gets lost, right? Like it gets lost, the recovery time for jiu-jitsu, because, man, everybody's like, man, I'm wore out from jiu-jitsu. It's like, all right, well, we got to do this again tomorrow. Like, how are you going to come back again tomorrow? And, and so I know for me, my recovery, I have to do the cold plunge. I have to do a cold plunge at least 2 or 3 times a week, at least, if I want my body to feel good. I have to stretch throughout the week too if I want my body to feel good, if I want to keep back here coming back and keeping my brain healthy too, and keeping my mind healthy. Movement is when we stop moving, that's when we start to get old. When we stop moving,
so true.
That's when we start to get old. It's a fact. It's a proven fact, man. As soon as we stop moving. And so maybe I won't be able to do jiu-jitsu for the rest of my life, but I sure hope so. And I think that your movement style and what you are doing is going to help me personally. I don't care about anybody else. No, but I think it's going to help me personally.
You can't be responsible for anyone else. All you can do is teach.
If
they want to learn,
you're exactly right. If they want to learn, they want to learn. And we're going to start, formulating a lot of our warm-up drills a little bit more into this style, into this movement form, as we go forward. And I'm excited for Saturday to learn more, man. But
that's excellent, and that's what I want with you. Is it, just in closing, just think the most important thing we want to do is make sure that when we teach people the fundamentals of movement, and I mean, how can we start teaching people how to wrestle, which is what jiu-jitsu is fundamentally. The beginning, it's wrestling. If you can't wrestle, we teach them to fundamentally, just wrestle another human, but we don't give them the technical breakdown of what wrestling really is, which is movement patterns. How to go from here to there is what it is. How to go from here to there. Jiu-jitsu gets more how to place the hand to get the right grip, to get the right, this, to get the, these are, so much of jiu-jitsu is about submission work, which is when you start to see the jiu-jitsu. Otherwise, you're wrestling. Take away all submissions. What do you see two people doing?
Yeah.
They're wrestling. 100%. So if that's basically the chocolate in the brownie that they're wrestling, you couldn't have jiu-jitsu without wrestling, then why are we not teaching people how to wrestle? But what is teaching wrestling if you're not teaching people how to move from one place to another? That's wrestling. Yeah. I mean, it's that simple. The end. The end. If you don't do that.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a better analogy for that. Well, listen, man, I see the battery's getting ready to go on the camera. We certainly appreciate you, taking the time to sit down with us. And I know DK, he's been we've been talking back and forth all week, and he's been sending me your videos, and also we got this guy coming on Saturday.
Awesome. I'm so grateful.
He's super stoked for it.
Thank you.
And I know everybody else that is here is stoked. I'll leave obviously your social media and stuff in the description. Also, I'll leave the link to your your website and all that stuff. So if anybody's watching and you want to get some tips on movement, then Cameron's got your back. So we certainly appreciate it, man. And if you like this type of content, I'm going to take your role. That usually DK will take us out. But if you like this type of content, we've had all kinds of interesting people, very interesting people on the podcast. Just go back through and check it all out, and check out the embeddeds and stuff too. And I mean, if you like it, then subscribe and help us out. So yeah, appreciate you, Cameron, once again. And till next time.